Hello, hello, everybody. Kelsey Komorowski here, founder of Como. Welcome to our interview series, Journey Into. Today, we're journeying into multimedia with superstar Ainara Alleyne. We are very fortunate that she has chosen to join us today. And in our chat today, Ainara is going to share the very cool career she has as a teenager already, and B, how she got into this, and how she even came to be a working professional at the age of 15.
Yeah, 15.
Awesome. Okay, so Ainara, I'm actually just going to pass it over to you. If you can tell us about what work do you do? Give us an overview of your career so far.
Okay, well, I do a few things. To start, I do acting and film. So I've auditioned for a lot of things and I've been in a couple shows and movies, and I have my own TV show on TVO Kids called Ainara's Bookshelf, which actually stemmed from my Instagram account, which is another hat that I wear, called Ainara's Bookshelf, where I am an advocate for literacy for kids as well as diversity and representation through books. And then I also work as a CBC Kids news contributor where I help with journalism, and I help them do news videos to explain like what's going on in the world for Canadian kids.
Wow, Ainara, that was such a great overview. So just to kind of to zoom out, you've got your own TV show based on helping kids learn how to read and promoting advocacy and diversity in media and literature. And then you're also I don't know if you use the word correspondent, but you're also in the news. And is this like, and I don't know if you've actually done this, so forgive me, guys, but I'm learning with you guys too. Were you on the red carpet, like interviewing celebrities?
I a couple of my favorite projects that I got to do with CBC in terms of, yeah, interviewing people. I was at the first Legacy Awards, which was celebrating Black talent in Canada. So that was really fun. I got to interview a lot of people. Andre DeGrasse was there. Love him. So that was really fun. And then another really fun one that I got to do was interview Timothee Chalamet for Wonka. So yeah, he visited Toronto, so I got to do a little interview with him as he walked down.
That is awesome. I'm like so excited by that. And I just know a lot of people watching this will be like, oh my goodness, that's really cool, Inara. Okay, so how how did you get into this? Like what were the origins? And just to also confirm, sorry, this is paid work, correct? Like this is not volunteer stuff. This is you are getting paid to show up and do this work as a professional.
Yeah, so for the work that I do with CBC Kids News and like acting and film, that's all paid work that I get to have into my account. So it's going into a separate account that I can't open until I'm later. So, which I think is good because my spending habits right now are probably not the best.
You're
Um,
going for college, yeah, it's smart.
Exactly. So it goes to a good spot for me to get when I'm older, when I'm ready, and when I need it. And for Ainara's Bookshelf, sometimes when I speak at different events, they will pay me, but I like to do it for volunteer hours as well.
Okay, fantastic. Because you are, after all, still in high school and needing
Exactly.
those hours. Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, take us back. Did you always know that you wanted to do this type of thing growing up? Was this something where you just woke up one day and you're like, I'm gonna go see if I can act? Like, how did this even come about?
Well, I've always loved presenting and performing. Like public speaking goes back to my roots. When I was in grade 4, I competed in my first public speaking competition and I won gold. So I've always been comfortable with like using my voice with other people and sharing that. And acting was the first area that I went into that really involved performing. And I think my parents saw me just being super dramatic and they were like, we need you in drama classes because this is very theatrical. So I went into drama classes, theater classes. I fell in love with it. And I just really loved expressing myself loudly, I guess, like with my full body and with my voice. And I think that allowed me and built me up to be able to share my voice with subjects that were harder to talk about, like the lack of diversity that I would see at school or in my libraries, which helped me to start Ainar's Bookshelf. And when I started Ainar's Bookshelf, I wanted to figure out a way that I could talk about this subject, as I think I was like 9 when I started. So I used what I know best, which is public speaking. So I started recording videos of myself talking about these books, about why we should read these books. And CBC saw that and they liked my presenting skills and how I spoke and the personality I had like on screen or on camera. So they reached out to me and I got to do a little audition for them as well.
Wow. Okay. So a few follow-up questions there. When you started, first of all, I got to do a shout out to your parents because I feel like a lot of parents would be like, "Oh my God, stop being so dramatic." And your parents were like, "Look at how dramatic she is. We should channel this into
Yeah.
the appropriate way, right? Like to leverage
Mhm.
this." So that's just a really cool nugget right there, even. Good job, Ainara's parents.
Right.
And then, okay, so when you started your Instagram account, was this something when you started it? Genuinely were you like, I just want to be able to talk about this stuff because I'm passionate about it, it matters to me? Or did you kind of have in the back of your head, if I start something, like maybe I could get discovered and this longer term goal of actually ending up in like having a multimedia career? Was there that initial goal or not so much at the outset?
Definitely not, because when I started in Art's Bookshop, that was my first like social media platform because I was obviously like super young and I was working with my dad to sort of build this account. So I didn't even know that was possible for people to see you and sort of reach out to you and want you to do things or help out and hear more of you. So initially starting it, it was really just me talking to my close friends and family because that's all the people that followed me.
Mhm.
And I would just sort of talk to them about the books that I love and how I'm feeling and why I'm sharing these books. Um, I remember the first video that I made, it was actually on my dad's Facebook account, and it was just me basically saying that, there's been a lot of crazy things going on in the news recently, and I don't want that to be the only way that I see people who look like me. So I got these books with just fun books with characters that were black, and I shared them, and I just threw a bunch of that I had up. And then I started my own account because that had a positive reaction. So I started my own account, and then, teachers started following me and stuff like that. And I just used it as sort of an education tool, sort of to help other teachers, hopefully bring these books that I'm sharing to their classrooms to expand, the range of books that people my age could see.
Mhm. That's fantastic. So both the passion project, advocacy work, and then how old were you when it took off, I guess would be the word to say, like when you did get when CBC reached out and when they were like, we love what you're doing, come check us out. How old were you when that happened?
Well, everything happened really fast, I feel like. And I guess because COVID, everything was like hyper online, so things tended to go fast at that time. So I think it was like probably like almost like a year after, because I think I was 10, because I know I was their youngest contributor that they've had. So I think I was around like 10 years old when they started reaching out to me and I started doing videos for them.
So that, wow, that is really fast. That's a really quick turnaround. Okay. And then when you got started with them and kind of took off down the CBC path, and for those of you who are in the States, CBC is like literally the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, right?
Yeah.
Like our main broadcaster.
Yeah.
It's a big one. Okay. And so when you started doing that, did it come quite naturally to you? Were you like really in your element from day one, or were there challenges? Did you face any adversity? Like what was that like just kind of getting your feet off the ground as far as this is now paid work I'm getting to do in this capacity?
Yeah. It was definitely new because there were so many rules that journalists have to follow. So, I can't have certain inflections in my videos to be like suggestive or like lean towards one side. My biases weren't allowed to be incorporated into the pieces. And also the whole journalism and research aspect. When I first joined CBC, there's a lot of training that you do. So, trying to find reliable sources, learning about false information, and that type of stuff. So that was really new to me. And that sort of influenced how I presented myself, I guess, because I obviously have to have a more professional type of posture and stuff like that. But what was really great about CBC Kids News is that I also got to have fun and show my personality in these videos as well. And not all of the projects that I did were super heavy and super serious things. So I got to enjoy and doing interviews and stuff like that. That was really me in my element. And I didn't realize at first because, yeah, obviously I didn't start off by interviewing people, but I
You didn't
interviewed
start off by
people.
interviewing Timothée Chalamet on the
Yeah, right.
road.
But I interviewed people on my Instagram before CBC reached out to me, and I would interview them on Instagram Live. But actually interviewing people in person is obviously so much different. But I felt really comfortable, and I found it something that I really do enjoy doing. So there were definitely things that I had to learn and adapt to, but also things that really spoke to me, and it was overall just really fun.
That's awesome. Also, just my own side note, I'm like, ask Ainara for interviewing tips after this is over because you have a lot of experience doing this, more than I. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about this taking off and you getting this work kind of building up and getting asks to go do these interviews and all these things while you're still in school. So did you like take a break from school? Did you take a reduced course load, or were you doing this as like with a full course load? How did that
Yeah,
work?
so I was definitely doing it with a full course load. Um, But because I started in COVID, there wasn't much of a course load to have.
Here, yeah.
So it was really simple, and I was really good at keeping up with schoolwork. Schoolwork came really easily to me in elementary school. High school is a little different story.
Well,
But
we'll come back to that. Yeah.
we'll come back to that. But yeah, so elementary school, it was really easy for me to keep up, especially obviously everything being online and me being able to work at my own pace. So balancing that with creating content and working with CBC wasn't hard. Um and also because I was in my own little world, so I didn't really have to worry as much about like the social aspect of my life because there wasn't really any social aspects going on because of the world was shut down and I was home anyways. So, yeah, I would say that the balance was definitely a lot easier at the beginning.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive right into now. So you're in grade
10.
10. Okay, and you still have a full course load as you are managing all of the different things you've already told us about, acting, auditioning, interview series, NR's bookshelf.
Mhm.
How are you finding it? Like how tell us about how are you in school? Is school hard for you? Is school still easy for you?
School is so basically, I feel like school I've always been able to generally pick up things pretty fast, but it gets a little bit harder, and high school, obviously grade 9 is like so much different than grade 8. So adapting to that took me a minute. And I think that, like, showed with, like, my lack of, like, content release because I wouldn't be posting as much content because I was trying to figure my way around the school and stuff like that. But I think during my grade 9 year, it got easier because grade 9 generally, like, they're all open classes, so the coursework isn't too hard. But it was all basically about just adapting to it. So that once I eased in, it got pretty easier. But once I got into grade 10 this semester, I've definitely found it a lot more challenging because now I'm taking all academic university courses and I'm a part of a lot of extracurriculars at my school. I'm in a lot of clubs. I don't even know if you want to hear all of them. But
Tell me like your top three or four. There's not more than four, are there?
how many days are in a week? I think there's 4. Um
Okay, go on. Yeah.
I'm on my student council. I'm in our yearbook committee. I'm a part of our vocal group, which is called BR Expression. So we sing. We're going to a competition in New York later in April. And yeah, I'm in Model UN, Model United Nations, and the debate team, and then I'm on our drama council.
Oh, okay. That is a lot. So full course load, tons of extracurriculars, and your career. I'm calling it that because you're a paid professional for many years now. How, okay, hold on. I want to pause there. I want to take it back to something you said before because otherwise I don't want to forget about it. And I think
Okay.
a lot of people looking at this, this is going to resonate. You mentioned that the transition from grade 8 to grade 9 was challenging, and then that this year to grade 10 was even harder.
Mhm.
For people who are not yet have gone through that transition, but who are
Mhm.
about to, and who might be like, yeah, it might be harder, but like, how much harder can it be?
Mhm.
What, based on your experience, what advice would you give them? Like, what's the number one or two tips or insights that you would share?
Yeah, I would say for grade 9 that grade 8 to grade 9 is that it's just really important to give yourself the time to figure out what's going on. Um, don't feel too pressured to like make friends or think that you're running out of time to make friends because everyone's getting in their groups, because in grade 9 everyone is trying to make friends. Everyone is at the beginning, everyone's starting from scratch, and we're all trying to build up together. And I think something that I wish that I did in grade 9 that I didn't do was join the clubs that I was interested in, because I was too scared. um, the expression group, my vocal group, and the theater class. This year, I have found my people, my clique. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought that was just a rumor. It's true. When you find people who get you and share passions with you, it's truly like a remarkable experience. And I wish I'd found it sooner. If I wasn't so afraid of, like people are gonna judge me. Like what if I don't fit in? You just do it. Just join the clubs. That's what makes high school like more fun. And I know people say that, but it's genuinely true. And also try in the work. I think people are like, oh, it's just grade 9. Universities don't look at our marks. I would say to pay attention to what you're doing, because come grade 10, you're going to have to choose which path you're going down, university or applied. And if you want to go university, you got to make sure that you're locked in, because that jump from grade 9 to grade 10 was harder for me, at least, because you're going from an open class to an academic class that has a lot more going on. It's fast paced, and you just sort of gotta keep up with the course load as well. It's a lot more. Like grade 9, I didn't come home and do homework because I did everything in class. But grade 10, studying for exams, I've been studying for like 4 weeks in a row now. And just like I come home after school and I'm just studying because there's so much coursework to do.
Yeah, that's so well said. I love the advice so much. Like it's so common to be afraid. Even like most adults I know, we all get afraid of doing things and we're all like, oh, fear of judgment or this or that. But to just really give yourself permission to lean in to who you are, like unapologetically, and to join the clubs. I think, and even just like your face as you were talking, like clearly the return on that investment is huge. So that's really awesome. And then I also want to highlight, because we have people from mostly North America, some overseas, but lots of different school systems.
Mhm.
But what Ainara was saying is true regardless. And I've been doing this over 20 years. I've been in a lot of different school systems. Transition to grade 9 is generally a shock for a lot of students. Grade 10 can be, but almost without fail, by the time you hit grade 11, if you haven't been using the first 2 years of high school to really practice, how are you managing your work? How are you going to get the grades that you want to get? Whatever those are, it doesn't have to be straight A's. Maybe you're happy with a 75 and above, but how are you doing that consistently in a way that you don't feel overwhelmed? If you don't have that locked in by grade 11, it can be very stressful. And then those are the grades that schools are looking at, that universities are looking at if you go down that path. So I think regardless of what system you're in or what pathways are available in your curriculum, that is a great insight. Use grade 9 to really figure out what kind of student are you going to be, and really build that muscle before it gets that much harder in subsequent
Yeah,
years.
I agree. And like because elementary school was like generally like I understood things quickly and I had teachers like to take the time. And I think that's also what's so different about high school, is that you have one teacher the whole time who you can build a relationship with and work with one on one, who can learn the ways that you learn. And high school, this is different. They have kids coming in, a new group of kids coming in every period. So learning study habits, grade 9 elementary school, I had no study habits. I didn't even know how to study for math. I don't know what you would do to study for math, but I didn't do it. So come this year, when I have an academic class that I have to prep for an exam for, it was a lot harder. So I think that if you do that in grade 9 and you just slowly, even if you don't have a lot of coursework to do, just figuring out and taking step by step what you would do and how you would do it so that you're building those skills for the next year is definitely super important, because I wish I did that.
That I'm so happy you said that. And for people who have been with me a while, you're like, Kelsey told her to say that. I didn't. Back me up, Ainara. I did not tell her to say
So
that, but that is literally our ethos, is like use all of every piece of schoolwork, every test, every assignment, doesn't matter how easy it is. It's just an opportunity to practice your skills and to get better at thinking and managing your time and learning
yeah,
and
time
retention, all
management.
of that jazz. Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. So actually that brings us back then to how on earth do you manage everything you have going on? And it sounds like developing skills was a big part of this, but what would you say, like if you had to name your top skills or mindsets even, it's not necessarily a hard skill. What has been instrumental in you being able to manage schoolwork, extracurriculars, your career?
If I want to be so honest right now,
Please.
I don't balance it if I'm being so real. I'm kind of just wobbling on one leg most of the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
But I think what is really important is to remind yourself that you can't be everywhere and do everything all at once. And even if that sounds stressful, because for me, I have a serious case of FOMO where I just like feel like I'm missing out or I'm not doing enough and I feel like a lot of guilt when I'm not doing the work that I know that I have to do. So I think just setting the time and the place for you to do everything that you need to do, things that you need to do, and things that you enjoy doing, things that bring you comfort, equally spreading your time through that so that you can feel like you've done everything, but also you're not like starving yourself from like joy and fulfillment as well.
Important, right? Like I feel like as humans, we like joy and to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna get just real quick, I'm gonna get a bit tactical.
Mhm.
How do you specifically do that? Like, do you have like a calendar that you use? Do you have like a to-do list? Do you have a journal? Like, how do you actually go about, I love what you said about that kind of allocating equally for you to keep up the wobble balance, the
Yeah.
managing, whatever, just so that you're feeling like you're getting enough time in each bucket. How do you actually plan that out? Or is it more of just like vibe check? How am I doing this week? Where do I need to spend time? How strategic are you with that?
Yeah, I'm honestly, and I think that's what's great about like doing this interview with me is that I'm still learning as well.
Love
So I'm still learning how I best manage my time and exam season, I've been trying to figure out what I'm doing because for like the past 3 weeks, I've been just coming home and doing schoolwork the whole time, but also allowing myself to like hang out with my friends because you don't have to spend every single day studying. Um, and I think yeah, just sort of taking a step back from the zone in that I'm doing, letting myself take a step back and look at how I'm feeling. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I in a good mood? Because if I'm not in a good mood, if I'm not feeling like I don't know how to explain it, fulfilled, I guess, then I'm not going to be able to do this work properly and feel good about it anyways. So, I think just really taking a look at yourself and what you need in that moment.
That's awesome advice. And I love the candor. Of course, you're still learning. And also, you guys, we're all still learning. I'm way older, obviously, than Ainara, still learning. Every adult I know is still learning, even though some don't admit it. So I think, Ainara, that's just a really great admission of like, obviously, as a teenager, you're still learning, but you guys are going to hopefully be learning for the rest of your life, which is why it's such a valuable skill. And I think, too, Ainara, I love the openness of, I think a lot of people, and especially teens, are very scared or resistant to admit if they don't know something. It's like, I have to know everything. I have to get it right away. And they think it makes them look dumb if they don't. And it's like, to me, it's very interesting because I'm like, that's literally learning is going from I don't get it or I don't know this to
Mhm.
I'm getting better at it. And that's such a beautiful, empowering process. Stifling yourself and saying, I have to know this. And if I don't, then, just putting all of these pressures on, there's no benefit to it. And it's all self-imposed. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's super smart. And then I also what you just shared, and I've worked with a lot of students, and I don't think I've heard many articulate what you just articulated with respect to like, make sure you get your sleep, make sure you get this. Like these are normally the parents I talk to, or like the older people where it's like
Yeah.
so important. But I think this is why I was so happy that you agreed to talk with me because like I often talk about the academic career and that students can bring professionalism to their work and that can be a really transformative approach to school from just like I have to do schoolwork to being like how would I approach this as a professional? And could you maybe speak to that as far as, and maybe it hasn't been explicit or conscious, but do you feel like your work in multimedia, in the spotlight, getting paid by CBC, like how has that informed how you approach school or your just general view of managing what you're managing?
Mhm. Yeah. I think for CBC, I use CBC specifically because I feel like that's my most that's like a job that I do and there's other people who are involved in it. Because Ainara's bookshelf, that's more like me and what I plan to do, and that all revolves around like what like myself and my production and what I'm putting into it.
Mhm.
But I think for CBC, because I know that there's other people who are involved and who are working, that I give my all because I know that I'm part of a team. And
Mhm.
I think that that really influences, I guess, my professionalism. And I want to do a good job. And I know that we're doing work that is supposed to be informative and for kids in Canada and to let them know the news. So when I'm submitting things like pitches or I'm finding sources for information, I try my best to make sure that they are as relevant and accurate as possible. And I really enjoy finding topics that I hear people in my circle talking about because I know that that's what's relevant for kids and I want to make sure that I'm helping them understand the world because me personally, navigating social media and the news is so confusing. And before I joined CBC, like, I didn't even know that misinformation was a thing. You know what I mean? We just believe what we see and we're like, okay. But learning about credible sources and things that are real versus, yeah, misled is so important. And I want to make sure that kids, especially because there's kids growing up with social media, that they understand this going into it and that they have reliable sources that they can come back to when they need to fact check something.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting because I know you've mentioned journalism a few times. This goes hand in hand. This is just in general information literacy, critical thinking, and critical, I need to specify because this happens like once a month, not as in criticizing, you guys. Critical as in, is this real? Is this not real? What is the source? Is it valid? Like Ainara said, is it credible? Oh man, and we could go down a rabbit hole just with that alone. We're not going to, don't worry. But Ainara, I just have a couple questions left for you. Can you tell us about a time when you failed? The more spectacular, the better in your
Okay.
and what
Uh,
you learned from it, of course.
yes. Let me think of a specific time. Oh, well, in like the acting industry, you get no's all the time. You're bound to get a million no's for every one yes that you get. So that can be really hard sometimes. And I think especially when I first started acting, it was really hard on me because when you get an audition and you get a script and you're like in love with it and I think something a habit that I have that is really not good for this industry is that once I get an audition, I immediately picture myself flying to Montreal or Vancouver and I picture what I'm gonna look like when I'm living there and the role and the people that I'm gonna meet and everything. So when you do that and you like imagine yourself in this role and you get a no, it makes the rejection even worse. So I think that is really hard. Um, I think a failure. I'm gonna talk about school because I have a lot of like I need academic validation, and I think that's relatable for a lot of kids. When you put yourself into something and you're doing a lot of work and you're studying and you're putting your all into it and you still get something that you're not happy with, I feel like that hurts a lot because you're like I thought I did my best and my best wasn't even enough to get me where I wanted to be. So I think that's another failure that you feel often. Um yeah, I would say that. There's a lot of times where I felt like fail and I think there's failure and then there's regret and I feel like regret is something that when I felt it really strongly. But I'd rather feel failure than regret because failure, at least you know that you tried. So, yeah.
I love that so much. Wow. So regret versus failure, so important. And I think what you shared both with respect to like the going on 100 auditions and getting 99 no's, as well as the school piece, I think this is so important, Ainara, because I think so many, again, people, especially teens in school, but people in general, we're so hard on ourselves. We personalize failure. Like we take it as like a personal shortcoming. There's something wrong with me. I'm not smart enough. I didn't do this. There's something wrong with you. But the way that you just talked about it, and especially with respect to the auditions, I think is so helpful because it's a really good reminder of like, all it means is that you tried something, it didn't have the outcome that you wanted, so you learn, keep trying, pivot, whatever it is, but not taking that personally. And I think maybe that's just like an acting mindset because you have to go into it knowing that you're going to get so much rejection. But I think in general, that's a really helpful perspective to kind of practice, like as far as not taking it personally. That said, Annie or Ainara, sorry guys, I'm calling her two different things. It's fine. What would you say as far as failure in school? Failure versus regret? Because, like, let's say you study really hard and you get an F or a D or whatever it is. What's your perspective on that type of like when it's like, hey, I got an F, that literally means failing in school, it's subjective. What's your perspective on that and coping with that type of disappointment?
Yeah. I feel like there's definitely been times where I'm like, I got this mark, so what was the point of studying? Like I wish I just didn't even study to begin with because I was gonna end up with this mark anyways. You know what I mean? But that's obviously not true because every little bit of work that you put in shows up in some way or another. Like if you have a test and you're studying for it and you don't do well on it, if you didn't study, you would have done even worse. So I think also just like you said, disconnecting yourself and your own self-worth based on your grades because so many people learn in so many different ways. And testing and evaluations is not the way for everyone. Like you can know all this information and you sit down to write that test and the anxiety and the clock is ticking and you just can't perform, but that is not an example of you and your knowledge and your skills, and that is so important to remember and so hard too because obviously you can know that and you can know that you understand, but if that's not reflected in your grades and what's going to get you to the future, it's hard. And it's not why I don't love testing a lot of the time and evaluations in school because that is not how everyone learns. And even if some people can do well, it's just not, it doesn't work for everyone. Same with public speaking. Like if you're in an English class and you have a final exam or culminating, I know there was a culminating, which is worth like 15% of your mark, and it's a speech. That's so stressful for some people. And me, I would rather do a speech than write an exam, but that's not the case for everyone. I know so many friends who they worked hard to create their presentation and their script, but they get up there and that's just not something that feels right for them. So I think just knowing your strengths and trying your best to adapt them to what, the school wants you to do, but also remembering that you can understand things and know things, and your self-worth is not attached to a number or a grade that you get.
That is such wonderful advice. I wish I could shout it from the rooftops. I also think, and Ainara, you didn't use the term peace, but when you were talking, it kind of came to me as far as so much of what you've shared is touching on go follow your passions, lean into who are you authentically, what lights you up, what gets you excited, follow those things, learn how to study, learn how to learn how to do school in a way that you're not super stressed and you can get the grades you want, but also come to peace with knowing, just even like you said about your different buckets, you can't be everywhere all the time. You can't be everything to all people. You're not going to feel like a math genius and a Shakespearean prodigy, like whatever. And that's okay. And I really love just the balance that you're striking between like work at doing your best, practice these empowering mindsets, develop your skills, but also like chill. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. And it's okay to know that everybody has different areas that they're going to excel in. Everyone has different preferences, and that is totally normal, and that is literally part of being human.
Yeah. And like you said, it's about also, and I think especially for high school, it's about like finding your passions.
Mm.
Um, and that also is like what's going to help you get through the harder coursework when you have, right now I have drama and musical theater, as well as math and science. So those are my four courses. So academic math and academic science are crazy course load, but I do those in the morning, and then I get to go to the auditorium, which is my favorite place in the whole school, and I get to perform with my favorite people, people who have not only understand my passion but share it and want to engage in it. And we put on a musical like up until like the last month. Fifth period for me was rehearsal for the musical that we were in, and that was such an incredible experience, and it's something that you can put in work. If you have something that you're passionate in, you can put work in it and be proud of yourself. And that will give you the motivation and the strength you need to do things that you're not so confident in. And I know that that was so true for me because theater is such a safe space for myself. And that's just like what I'm passionate about. And learning and growing in that field that really drives me, seeing myself grow in that allowed me to be open and be ready to learn and grow in these other subjects that don't come as easy for me.
That's amazing. And you know what, Ainara, that just my last question. I'm not even going to ask it because you just answered it beautifully. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story, sharing about your journey into multimedia. Actually, I lied. I will ask one final question.
Yeah.
What's next for you? What do you have coming up as far as your career? Do you have anything? I don't know if you're even allowed to tell us, but like, is there anything going on? Any projects in the works?
Definitely some projects. I'm still with CBC, so I'm love working with them. We're stirring up something for Ainara's Bookshelf, the TV show, possibly stirring something up there. Um, but yeah, so that's what I got right now.
That's awesome. And where can people find you if anyone is interested in learning more about Ainara's Bookshelf, about you, about your work? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at Ainara's Bookshelf on Instagram. That's my main platform. And then if you want to see the show, it's on TVO Kids and on YouTube, Ainara's Bookshelf.
Wonderful. And you guys, I'm going to link to all of the ways that you can check out more about Ainara and really the incredibly important and valuable work that you're doing. So, Ainara, thank you for that. Guys, thanks for listening. That's it for our journey into multimedia for today. Ainara, thanks again. Really appreciate
Thank
it. You guys,
you.
we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.